Hi, welcome. You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and this is a special broadcast, something which we have been working on and bringing to you on a regular basis in association with Business World, where we speak to some of the brightest and, in fact, the most talented business minds in the country. The situation that we find ourselves in is perhaps very peculiar to all of us, be it startups or be it established businesses. Everyone has some sort of a challenge to in fact combat and contend with, and we try and figure out what are the ways and technologies and ideas with which this tough phase can perhaps be overcome. And without wasting any more time, I'll introduce our guest. Joining me on the panel today is Mr. Himanshu Kunteta. He's the founder of Twisha Jewels. Mr. Ashwin Sivakumar, co-founder and chief of digital business growth, Jugular Social Group. And we also have Mr. Arun Jagannathan, co-founder and CEO of Craig Verbal, and Mr. Pranay Agarwala, partner of Panda Law. Firdaus Variava, Vice Chairman of Bharat Flooring and Tiles. And last but by no means the least, Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Business World. Usually I start my show by asking one of the panelists as to what they think of the state of the economy right now. But in fact, let me start by asking Anurag a question. Anurag, we've been doing this for quite some time. And you being, the leader that you are and the thinker that you are, what is the sense that you have been able to gather from the number of talented people who have been in this platform on NewsX and have spoken about the economy? The urgency with which we started out the show has perhaps somehow faded now that things have gotten back to normal. The economy is slowly striding back. Let's hear a synopsis from you before we in fact go on and move on to the other panelists.
Thank you, Vineet. I think still there is work in progress as well as revival of the economy is concerned. This Diwali season is a month away from us. So Diwali spending is there. Advertising is back to 70-80% levels, but I would say we are far away from economic recovery. It will only depend on three things. One is another stimulus from the government. Second is spending on public infrastructure. The more the government spends, it will bring an impetus. Today the government announced some measures. Some industries like tourism is very unhappy with it, because then this becomes instead of being used for travel, will be used now for consumer demand of other products. And third is, dare I say, the Indian consumer is very wise and dare I say cautious. He or she will save money for the rainy day. The last 7 months have been such that even people who have steady jobs have saved a lot. They would possibly put it in an asset like a home, because possibly even young millennials have spent much more time in a home. So I think there are a long way to go. There is a demand from the industry to extend the moratorium on loans. That hasn't been accepted. I think the next 6 months are even more crucial. And what matters is that Corona doesn't escalate. If there is a big wave, then it can again create a fear factor, which becomes a health issue, which will then impact the business. So I think we are far away from recovery. There may be some green shoots of recovery. We've looked at the vehicle sales. We look at Maruti's numbers in September, but they are, we can't say that will continue post-November. Let's see what happens in December. So I'm very cautiously optimistic. I'm not pessimistic, but I'm a little cautious about that. And I would want to have a definitive view on that. Yes, things are better today. Let me say that. Most businesses that have survived have found a way to exist. They have tweaked their business models. They have brought their costs down. So entrepreneurs in India are inherently resilient and creative. So they've got the flap out. But I think from an economic and business standpoint, things are still somber, if I may use that word. We have to be cautiously optimistic.
All right. Now that, Anurag, you've put things into perspective, we have a tangent to go by. And Himanshu, let's start with you. What's been your assessment of where we find ourselves economically? Obviously, the moratorium cannot be extended. There is a limit to which the government can extend or be benign a point after that, it has to take care of its own needs, and taking care of its own needs means the government is taking care of us. But at the same time, there are avenues, there are businesses that have had a lot of complaints. They've had a grouse, if I can call it, against the government for not taking care of them. Are you one of them? And if not, how have you prospered, or how have you been doing, in the last 6 months?
Thanks, Vineet. Thanks for having me here. So let me first of all tell you about how the industry has coped up or how they are dealing with this. Before the lockdown, the industry was doing really good. And it was something that we were thinking that 2020 is going to be really amazing. But somehow, as this corona crisis came, what happened?
I hate to cut you short, but we know the background, we know the perspective. Let's cut to the chase. Let's answer the question directly. Tell us what, we know this perspective. So tell us what has happened to your business, how has it pivoted, and where do you see the economy going? We all know the background by now. So let's cut the chase, let's get to real discussions. Okay?
Okay.
Yes, Himanshu.
So basically, what we have felt as of now, that since there are no lot of places where people can invest, so this is something because gold has given good results. So people have started investing in gold again, and also being a luxury, it is not that much how it used to be earlier. Now, talking about the industry, how we are thinking about to go ahead. So of course, social media is something that has managed to do it well. And all these months during the lockdown up till now, this is what we have worked upon. Be it Instagram, Facebook, be it other things like YouTube channels and stuff, virtual reality, augmented videos. We are creating that. We are trying to get the customer somehow over here. So all the customers who had good budgets, they have cut down on them. And again, just because in our industry, there used to be a lot of credit that people used to take from the banks. And that has actually hit the industry hard. People don't have money to pay to the banks at the same time because the rotation has stopped somehow. And this is something that's a very, very serious issue. Now, everybody from the credit thing has changed themselves to the cash part. So a company that is small, that has less expenses, is surviving better, and they can improve. I mean, we are planning to improve and increase our business in a better manner.
Let me go to Ashwin. See, Himanshu, and I want to say to other panelists, can you be more specific and not make general points? I want to say this on air because we all know the background. We're entrepreneurs, we are well read, so are our viewers. So they want a nuanced view. They don't want general things. I think they are very wise. So let me start with you, Ashwin. What has changed for you in the last 7 months in the way you operate? What has happened in your industry, and how do you see the future?
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks, Anurag, for having me here. I run a digital consulting firm, so we operate a group of agencies as well. So our business line, we might think that it's one of the industries which can be humanized because we're just talking about digitization and things like that, but it's not necessarily true. So what's happened is, from our side, we used to focus a lot on traditional businesses. Ironically, we had a bunch of real estate clients, we had healthcare enterprises, we had industries, operations, the educational vertical. So what's happened is we realize more and more that the economy of the country is not going to improve until unless the traditional businesses are back in the scheme of things in terms of what their the day in the life is going to be, right? The key is about getting the traditional businesses back in the scheme of things. When we talk digitization broadly, I think we should not miss the point and just focus on, let's say, aggregation, digital payments and things like that, but we go beyond the fundamental crux of the problem, because none of the entire industry, I mean the entire economy of the country runs on the fact that the traditional businesses, the small medium businesses need to be in a healthy state of affairs. And I think we need to focus on digitization of these enterprises more, and our focus has been helping them diversify, probably creating new business models so that they can channelize it back to a new revenue stream, create new employment opportunities.
Maybe some of them were not focusing on e-commerce.
Not at all.
E-commerce. Give us a sense of, Ashwin, how have I call COVID the chief digital officer of most companies these days. COVID is the biggest digital transformer. It has forced us to do. Just to give you a data point, in the US, the e-commerce market was e-retailing was 16% of the overall 100% pie. But in the last 7.5 months, the 16% has become 26%. So 20 years from 1 to 16 and 7.5 months from 16 to 26. That's the kind of acceleration we've seen. So give us a sense through numbers. Have the spends of clients on digital transformation gone up? And if yes, what are they spending on?
Right. See, actually, the spends I wouldn't say have gone up, but I think has been reprioritized, right? I mean, we again use the word digital transformation very broadly. Transformation can happen on technology, transformation can happen on processes. So I think what's happening is I think businesses have started focusing on customer experience, right? I mean, in the end of the day, the customers' habits are changing, their priorities of where they want to spend is changing. So on one hand, we talk about the customers or the consumers' lack of spending capabilities, but at the same time you have so much of digital consumption. I mean, the OTT channel consumption has increased, the content consumption has increased. So it's not like the consumers have sort of reprioritized where they want to spend, right? I mean, that's one area. And so the traditional businesses have kind of started spending more on more like new revenue models. You know, they're actually increasing advertising spends, increasing more, creating digital assets, right? Which was originally not thought of as a core to a business model. I mean, people don't think beyond a website.
They clearly believe that the online is the way forward. I mean, that's very obvious. But you're saying that has set into the way each of your clients are doing business. Well, let me bring you in. What has changed in your business in the last 6-7 months?
Hi, Dr. Anurag. Thank you for having me. Thank you also to Vineet for having me. As lawyers, we have seen significant digitization happen, and in our industry specifically. In fact, I would like to inform you, our industry was sitting on the cusp of digitization in many, many ways, and we were just waiting for a push, and COVID has definitely acted as a chief technology officer. What we are seeing is where there was a complete shutdown of what would happen in courts, where if nobody can appear before court, literally the entire machinery of, you could say, if you take one vertical, just money recovery would come to a complete standstill. I'm not going to say it's back to 100% functioning, but courts being digitized and being able to take hearings on over VC, over Zoom, over platforms like this has really put the power back into the courts. And we are seeing a lot of advantages where a counsel would perhaps be limited by his geographical location can now do more than one matter. So while it's slow, the courts are taking time to adopt to digitization. It's not easy. A lot of processes that legal services...
So has the litigation grown? Has the commercial litigation grown?
No,
You see it growing?
I was getting to that point. So while courts have made a significant effort to digitize, there is a large part of the industry that requires physical presence. There's a large part that requires for evidence and for trial, and that's time consuming and that's labor intensive, which cannot happen over video conferencing. So there has been a real roadblock to money suits, to civil recoveries. Adding to that is the enhancement of the minimum limit under the IBC. That has taken a lot of small recoveries, small businesses out of its realm entirely. Not only are the courts now functioning hamstrung because certain processes cannot be done online, they're also not taking up a lot of matters. And that's where I believe a lot of money of our economy is stuck. If we can push this, there's thousands of crores stuck in litigation.
Our next cover, next cover is on how the NCLT and NCLAT can function better and hence can unlock the economy. So
Definitely.
we in some way have synced in what you are saying. Firdaus, your opening comments on what has happened to your domain and where do you see it going in the next 6 to 7 months?
So one of the things that everyone always talks about is the fact that the housing market has crashed and how home sales are down. But this is not true for all markets. Like we found that, for instance, Hyderabad and Bangalore, there have been a lot more people who are renovating their homes, who are buying homes, and who have disposable income in these markets. So for our business, those kind of markets have been a lifesaver. Like there's been Goa, Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Mumbai has been a total washout. So
even in the affordable segment or let's say affordable plus segment, I looked at some data today. You rightly said Bangalore, the sales are back to pre-Feb levels. So clearly, but Bombay also has seen a lot of activity. not in the luxury housing or upmarket housing, but it has seen a lot of activity in the 60 lakhs to 1.2 because that's affordable in Bombay. Affordable for the different cities at different price point. You're not seeing.
But we were quite surprised by the Hyderabad market, for instance. I mean, things are really hot over there. Things are booming, and for us, that's actually been a lifesaver because a lot of our orders, we just set up a market shop over there. So suddenly, we got saved by that. Had we stuck to our home market of Bombay, we would have got killed. So it's been sort of like a mixed bag for us.
And how do you see post Diwali, Firdaus? We know the next 30 days, 40 days, we will see buying, we'll see demand. But do you see it beyond Diwali? Do you see this current, momentum lasting beyond Diwali?
So one of the worst things or the best things is that while there is demand, but people are bargain hunting. So everybody I talk to is getting squeezed. I mean, we deal primarily with interior designers. So, interior designers are complaining to me about the fact that where earlier they would charge like 5 or 6 lakhs for a project, now somebody's coming to them and saying, I'll pay you 30,000 for the same thing. And the designer is actually tempted because it's like, mere paas kuch kaam nahi hai. So I would actually take this to be busy. Yes. Similarly, in our business also, when we came out of the lockdown, we brought out specific price point of 100 rupee floors, where our normal price is 200. And we found huge offtake. Suddenly, all the stock that was pending in the COVID days, suddenly everything got over, within a matter of 1 month or so, we were sold out. So the thing is that when you offer people bargains, people are jumping on it, people do have the money, but they are severely bargain hunting. And that's actually causing a lot of pain to various sectors which were used to, juicy days where, interior designers were earning certain fees. Now they have to cut those fees down. But the other good thing is that there's also a lot of impetus now towards Make in India and towards supporting artisans. That's become part of people's DNA, that let's try and do something for artisans. Let's support people who are making things in India. So it's been like a mixed bag in some ways.
Yes, and I agree. Even if you take Pranay's legal profession, top lawyers are half their fees because one, they can do more, appearances. The second, they know that the paying capability of large business houses has been impacted. Forget, everybody else. Arun, give us a sense of what's happening in your domain, what's your experience, and what do you foresee for the sector that you're in and for the economy as a whole?
So I represent the education sector, and when I say education, these days everybody says it's edtech, right? But I represent also, before the COVID lockdown, I had 3 centers, right? As you might, everybody is aware, even now, till now, coaching centers are not opened up, correct? So it's about 6 to 8 months.
In a physical manner.
Sorry?
Just to qualify, in a physical manner.
In a physical manner.
They're not opened up in a physical manner. But education and learning goes on through digital.
Right. So what happened is that, we shut down all our 3 centers. We have gone completely online. But that is not the case for most people who are in the, coaching or the training industry. Because though EdTech looks, like the natural progression, but, I feel EdTech then will become a winner takes it also. You have the large names which are anyways able to kind of corner the market. But how would you take care of, let's say, a single trainer who has an institute who employs 5 people, correct? And also the talks that we have had about economic stimulus, somewhere everything seems to be veered towards, manufacturing and moratorium and all that. See, the problem for us is actually not OPEX. Our problem is CAPEX. It's actually OPEX. It is the monthly running. How do I negotiate with my landlord to bring down the rent? Or how do I, take care of salaries? So I think from that perspective, the training industry has been it. As someone pointed out, yes, entrepreneurs are resilient. We are trying education online.
But haven't you thought of productizing what you do, Arun? It's a great opportunity to productize what you do. And give us a sense. Say in February, if you had 100 students and you had 1,000 rupees as revenue, where are you today in terms of your revenues? Has the income that you earned from coaching been impacted? And is that true for the whole coaching industry?
Right. So in our case, we have seen a 50% reduction in cost because all my fixed costs have gone down. my top line has actually increased by about 25% because now we are no longer restricted to Bangalore. So, the whole team is looking at, so pretty much as long as you have a Zoom connection, you can be anywhere in the world. So that's been a huge advantage for us.
Okay. Himanshu, would you like to now tell us a little bit about specifics about what is happening in your business and specifics about where do you see the economy headed? Himanshu?
Yeah, hi Anurag. So, well, about the economy, we feel like that in our industry, the rate, our manufacturing rate, our selling rate has decreased by 40%. And you see, going ahead, like since Diwali season is coming and even the marriage season is coming, people have waited long, really long for this COVID thing to get over. So now people have started buying things. But as I just heard, and he was right saying that people are looking for deals. They are squeezing us now. They are seeing, they are looking for right deals ahead. So looking ahead, post Diwali, we are still finding the business to come back again. It won't be back how it was earlier, but yeah, we are seeing it in a positive way that things will improve.
Thank you so much. Vineet, you may want to ask them some more questions.
Himanshu, the fact of the matter is that the festive season is also around the corner, and things perhaps will look up for most businesses, but at the same time, the thing that the government and states are going to be worried about, and including businesses such as yours, is that COVID-19 is not settling down. Cases seem to be going higher and higher up. Is it going to be an unrealistic expectation for the economy to prosper when COVID-19 is also prospering?
Sorry, I couldn't get the last line.
Well, is it okay to in fact expect the economy to start doing better when you also have the virus spreading so ferociously?
Yeah. So basically, what we have realized recently is that people have now started coming out of their home because they have understood this thing that things have to continue. They have to go on. And since, because as you just said, that the festive season is nearby, so they have started doing all the arrangements that they need to. So talking about the wedding industry, like the weddings are coming. So people have started investing in jewelry. They have started pre-planning because they are unsure if governments does the lockdown or something of that sort anytime. So that's the thing that's going on right now, and hopefully we are very positive about it that in the near future we will again attract customers and catch to 70 to 80% of our sales. So that is what we have.
And just to build on Vinny's question, has AR, VR really become a way for, you talk omni-channel in the retail segment. Has it really happened in a big way, or it is still a kind of novelty?
It takes time. You see, it's all about the today's generation. And till now, it's not the today's generation's thing that they want jewelry as their top priority. They want their clothes to be taken care of them by themselves. So when it talks about families, like our parents, they think that they want to see the piece. They don't want to go now 10 places. They want to go to 1 or 2 places. So it's very difficult for a newcomer to enter in the market. But the older ones, or if they're coming to one place, it's very promising that they will buy from you. They don't want to go here.
The versions are better. But Himanshu, the wedding season is around the corner. Do you see the fortunes of the jewelry industry changing as the wedding season approaches? And in weddings, you will save money from a lot of things. With the gold price having behaved the way it has behaved in the last 6 months, do you see jewelry over the next 3 months possibly seeing a revival that we cannot imagine?
Not exactly. We cannot expect a very surprising figures, but there is definitely a jump that we will see. Last 6 months have been very difficult. So in our industry, everybody is positive. They are making something new for the brides. And we are planning way ahead with the exhibitions and other things that we used to do earlier. So yeah, we are very positive about it. So mostly the business will increase.
Arun, let me bring you in. Now, every company that does contents wants to be an EdTech company, whether you're a coaching center, whether you have whatever you do. Tell us, what's your sense in terms of parents and students both more keen on a hybrid model than a pure play virtual model? And do you think there is too much overcrowding in EdTech? Give us a sense of what you feel.
So 2 points over here. The first point being, what is that students and parents are wanting. So since I am in the higher ed market, where many of my students end up going abroad, going to foreign countries, I think the whole idea that the COVID has made learning online has actually put a spanner. So many of them are even deferring their admission, because I think when they are looking at a full-fledged program like a 2-year or a 1-year MBA or a master's program, they want to have the experience of being on campus, interacting with people around them. So that being a strong sense that we have gotten. In terms of the second part, which is the edtech companies, I think there is two parts to it, which is education and technology. My perception is there is a lot of companies coming in the technology space, but do they have the depth to understand the education and learning outcomes for the student is something that is suspected.
Okay, and do you think students have a level of involvement online that they have in a physical space? When you did coaching physically, in your centers are open, and you talk to the student. And I remember when I was younger, many moons back, I would go to coaching center, and it was fun meeting your friend. But do you think you're able to impart the same quality of learning that you did pre-COVID in a virtual way? What's your sense, Arun?
Right. So I think one of the key things when we go online to teach is keeping user engagement, right? Like especially if it's a class for about 90 minutes, how do I keep the user or the student engaged during this process? So what I personally think is that along with all the tech, there has to be a touch. So for example, at Connect Global, we are looking at doing both tech and touch, so that there is some technology, people are using the app, there are benefits, there are no doubts to it, but also having someone who could be a counselor, could be a teacher, who's there to solve issues, solve problems as and when they occur. And more importantly, I think what you pointed out was very correct. There is an overall motivation. Correct? That motivation factor happens when you go. There is in India, if you go for coaching and teaching, slightly social, you have friends coming along with you in the center.
That's not education, even if you're in a college or a school. It is not just about the classroom education. It's about life skills. It is about experiences. It is about interaction with teachers and students in a face-to-face manner. I think when we have a choice, we'll really know the answer. My hunch is we'll go back to especially in education, we'll go back to the physical model. Ashwin,
there could be a blend. There could be, we could change.
Blended learning. Blended learning has become the new buzzword in education. Ashwin, when we talk of digital spends, have you seen an increase in digital spends? Have you seen a movement from other mediums into digital? And give us a sense of how the spends have changed.
Yeah, so in the businesses, especially in the traditional business lines whom we are handling from a digital perspective, actually the spends have increased, right? Because majority in terms of the audiences are digital. I mean, there has been lockdown, so it becomes a necessity. So I mean, if it was, let's say, 10% in an earlier scenario, it's now about 30 to 40%.
Okay, so you're saying you've gone from 10% to 30-40%. That's a 3-time jump, and it's significant. In certain cases, the spends may be significant.
It's increasing more also, Anurag, because in the end of the day, if they're able to attribute the customer journeys, I think that's always been.
Are they going for performance, or they're also going for brand building?
See, I think small medium businesses have been on obviously footfalls. There's a house to run, there's cash flow to manage. That's never going to be the chain. But that's very understandable. But in terms of certain brands, I think they understood the concept of a brand, because we're in an era of aggregation right now. And it's also very important to be able to build a lasting brand and bring in the customer loyalty, then only even reduce the operational cost. The customer journeys have been improved. So there's been fair spends on brand building.
Okay, thank you, Ashwin. Pranay, let me come to you. Law firms over the last 3-4 weeks have laid off people. I don't want to take law firm name, but at Business World, we have a bwlegalworld.com. We understand that segment, and big names. They've downsized for the first time. They were holding up for 6 months, 7 months. Now, do you see that you will see more and more law firms downsizing? And how do they compensate for laws of business and mergers and acquisitions, in terms of new investments, the only person who seems to be getting big investments is Mr. Ambani. Others are smaller deals. So give us a sense of what will happen to the structure of a traditional law firm which had 300 professionals, maybe 40 partners.
So let me split the business of law into two general verticals. Let's say there is litigation and then there is the corporate side of work. On the corporate side of work, where you said Ambani seems to be getting investments, so the larger investments where the investor was sitting on a fund and was looking to actually invest that fund and grow that fund will definitely make the moves. In fact, will negotiate a better deal now because everybody's looking for money. So their positions may have only changed but have not altered significantly. They've not hit roadblocks. Whereas in a smaller sector where you're looking at, putting all your eggs in one basket to make a bigger gain, those people are being very cautious. They have held back their investments. They have actually held that to do the OPEX. The panelists mentioned that OPEX
is the king. So you're making sure you're holding on to cash.
And if you're sitting on cash, that's valuable resource for you. So you're not going to be spending it on acquisitions and perhaps lawyers to just analyze acquisitions and to do diligence and to do reviews.
Unless you have very serious intent and you're getting, if I may say, a bargain deal.
Not only that, unless the ticket value is so large that the money is burning in your pocket is larger than what you will pay to acquire.
Sure.
The balance when it comes to the quantum of the deal value that you're looking at. Beyond a certain value, if you don't invest, that makes you lose money in a very general sense of way, if you think about it. The smaller investor is definitely impacted. So I would say even the smaller target company, the acquiree, the person who's looking at receiving the money, is impacted by it. As a result of that, and the trickle-down effect into our industry, in the service industry, is that corporate law has significantly taken a hit in terms of billing, in terms of hours billed out, in terms of resources deployed towards corporate law work and M&A work and transaction level work. On the litigation front as well, we are severely hamstrung in the fact that courts cannot function. The efficacy of courts today requires a physical presence. There's so much that is done by the physical presence of parties, of counsels, of judges. Where now all of that is trying to be transposed onto a digital medium. It has its drawbacks and it's not as effective as being present before court. So on both fronts, we are seeing a slowdown and we're seeing where business has effectively shrunk. Our ability to do business, our ability to get business is completely dependent on COVID getting better. And we are literally waiting for all the other panelists to grow their businesses so we can also, get some.
We're a support service. Now let me ask all of you, one, what is your top lockdown lesson? One or two or three, what is that you added on as an entrepreneur in your thought process that will help you throughout your journey of being an entrepreneur? Whether you're a law firm owner or you run a coaching institute or you run a marketplace for Indian furniture or you run a technology transformation. Second, when do you overall see the Indian economy being back in full bloom? 6 months, 12 months or 18 months? Let me start with Firdaus. Firdaus, what's your top lockdown lesson?
Well, so we are a manufacturer of handmade cement tiles, and our top lesson was that instead of selling tiles, why don't we look at antiviral coatings? So
being innovative.
Yeah, there was no alternative. We used to sell coatings for our floors because customers wanted some coatings. We decided why not make these coatings antiviral, and now that's a new product line that we've introduced. The second thing that we realized that we need to look outside of India, so we've been doing a lot of exports and we're developing a special brand for exports. And the third most important thing was digitization. We had physical stores in 6 locations, and now we actually have looked at a website. How can we do e-commerce? This sort of dinosaur approach which we had earlier is not going to work. So we're actually spending a lot of money on digital transformation, and hopefully that should see us through the next year. These couple of
So that's good. And when do you see the economy being back in full bloom?
Honestly, So everyone keeps telling me that don't be cocky just because demand seems to have returned, because there could be a slump next. So honestly, it's very confusing for me. I'm not an economist, but I just hope that the demand surge that is there right now continues and that we don't see a slump again towards the end of the year or something like that.
Okay. Arun, your top lockdown lessons?
So I think one of the biggest realization has been that the customer remains the same. The ways and means to reach out to them might change. So as you had mentioned, we also invested in productization, and we realized that at the end of the day, as long as you're meeting the customer needs, pretty much that's been the biggest takeaway. From our side, we also had, I also have English for India, which is into coaching, corporates. And over there also, corporate used to be very resistant with, coaching on Zoom, right? So now we are, giving online coaching on Zoom. So I think the customer is also realizing that the times have changed. And as you said, so that's been the thing that we need to see if it is going to be sticky for the next 6 months. But really focusing on the customer has really helped for us.
And when do you think the economy will be fully back?
So I am being a little optimist, but I would say 6 to 12 months is what I would figure out. Somewhere mid of next year is what I would get.
Your top lockdown lessons?
I would say agility, given how the industry's landscape is changing at a moment's notice. Government is also pushing certain sectors harder than other sectors. So we have to be in a position where we are not turning down work. Earlier, it was chic to be a niche firm and to offer niche services. Today, we're grabbing everything and we're not letting anyone go.
Maybe you'll have to start doing business development. Among the top 5 law firms of the country, one of the owners told me that for the first time, they say we would never focus on getting business because we would automatically get in so much requests. But now I have to focus on getting business. The top marquee name in the legal fraternity said this to me. And when do you think economy will be back?
I'm not a virologist, but if
either I'm an astrologer.
No, I'm looking at it from an infection perspective, how the virus is spreading.
Yeah, so of course, that's a $1 trillion question. The right answer is the economy will be back 3 to 6 months after the virus is found. But
very much.
If we don't find a virus soon, in spite of that, when do you see the economy back? So there are variables. When will the virus recede? When will we find the vaccine? So on and so forth. But what's your sense? If it continues like this, when do you think we will be able to kind of recover?
12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months. Thank you for being specific. Himanshu Kunteta, what are your top lockdown lessons? And when do you see the economy coming back?
Well, my top-notch lessons are that we have to sit on the reserves. We should have some reserves for such unexpected things. Secondly, being digital and reaching out to the new customers. Thirdly, we have to attract the youth because youth is the highest, the number in this country. And fourthly, about the customer, very promising customers. We want customers do not go here and there. We want them to be with us anytime. So that's what we are going to do.
When do you see the economy back?
Post this season is okay. But next season, that is post-July, we think that things should move good and very good.
Ashwin Sivakumar?
Anurag, the top lesson for me would be the fact that, we needed an urgent need to kind of spot entrepreneurs. Right. I mean, for
beautiful point you bring in.
It's very important to be able to get employees who are there to be able to motivate them. When everything around them was pretty negative, there were a lot of uncertainties. One of the lessons I learned was to be able to focus on them, to be able to bring them some kind of entrepreneurship opportunities while making them feel very secure about the fact that job is safe. I think that's something which has held us in good stead because I would say that's, with all the problems we went through, like any other business, one thing which held us together was the fact that, our people were with us, our people were with us, and there's a certain level of security which came along with it, and that was an important lesson which we learned very early on, the start of the virus episode. The other thing is also, being very transparent with the whole level of transparency which comes between the customers and you, right, as are the business. That comradeship is much more because everybody is in the same boat. I mean, it's a tough business landscape. So that helped in terms of articulating and kind of talking to each other. For example, in the healthcare sector, for instance, I mean, we serve a lot of hospitals from a digital transformation perspective. I mean, obviously, they were facing a lot of strain in terms of the operational cost, in terms of it's a very capital-intensive business and huge responsibility during Corona times. So so I mean, we had to do certain ways of engaging with these brands to be able to help them through the cycle while they were helping us through the cycle. So it's all been useful. It's kind of going back to square one in terms of what really comradeship and doing business is all about, right? Yeah.
And when do you see the economy being back, Ashwin?
That was a thunder.
Come again?
No, I don't know if you heard the thunder.
I heard the thunder. I'm sure it's the gods being kind on us. But when do you see the economy being back?
From the looks of it, I think it will take, depending on the sector again. I mean, I think we need a year to bounce back at it. So, I mean, as a country. So
at least a year. We need. Normally, you ask me the question, but let me ask you as a consumer and somebody who also interacts with so many people. What's your sense? What has changed for the positive in last 7 months, and what has become even more negative in it?
That's a brilliant question, Anurag. I think what's changed is that people have perhaps realized the value of going digital. Even people who were extremely averse to embracing digital, our mothers, our grandmothers, our uncles, our aunts, and to some extent, even children at a very young age are perhaps getting the exposure to digitization that they would have not received had COVID-19 not come. They would still be going to school in their buses, they would still be accessing screens to watch cartoons and sometimes to play video games. So I think that aspect is positive in a way as well, but it is also with a flip side that instead of being able to go and play in parks, Anurag, they're forced to stay at home and play video games. So if you remember, as school children, we did have an essay in our schools which was Vigyan Vardhan ya Abhishap. What is it? Which is it? Which side are you looking at? So I think it's both, if that answers your question.
And when we need to talk to people about economy, what's the sense you get? I'm not talking about people who are entrepreneurs. I'm talking from a common man, from a person on the street. I know we meet much lesser people than we met in the past, but what's the sense you get? I mean, are they seeing the future as bright, or they're just hanging in there and taking the day as it comes?
I think people are being extra cautious with their money now. There is a lot of incentive for them digitally to purchase things. There is more lure for them on platforms because everybody is by a huge percentage spending more time in front of their computers and screens than they were before COVID-19. So on one hand, Anurag, you have this urge to buy a lot of products, to be lured by these products, and on the other side you have this urge to save money as well, because you don't know if you're going to have a job tomorrow or not. You don't know if your business is going to do well or not. So I think we are somehow stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea, a rock and a hard place. And we just have to make the most of the situation. And a lot of people look up to the government as well, to take action. And the festive season is coming. We were talking about temples reopening, social distancing at a time when Diwali is around. How difficult is it going to be? So according to me, the challenge is not over. That's the sense that I get from people. That they are being extremely circumspect, but at the same time, they are combating this lure of jumping back into that retail therapy mode. So they're being stopped and pulled at the same time.
Thank you, Vineet. I want to ask the last question to all the panelists. That, Vineet, is the question we would ask in the earlier days of the show.
Yeah.
Have you seen people around you benefiting from the economic stimulus? And what do you think the government can do more? Both are linked in a way. So again, I'll start with Firdaus. Have you seen people around you benefiting from the economic stimulus in any way? Yes, no?
Sadly, no. I mean, while I feel there might be some indirect benefit in the sense that banks seem to be more eager to give loans and things like that, but I personally don't know anybody who's had any personal benefit from the economic stimulus.
Okay. And what do you think the government can do more? See, let me say Firdaus into other, and you must say what you have to say, but we've had at least 10 or 11 entrepreneurs on our show who have directly benefited. You know, they would get an external loan additional from the bank, and they benefited in very direct ways, which was the intent of the package. So there are people who benefited, I just want to say, and those are people we've got on our show. But what do you think, Firdaus, the government can do more?
I mean, see, honestly, for us right now, in fact, we've looked at expansion. So we looked at the fact that we are also bargain hunting and we are finding cheaper sources of machinery and things like that. So I just feel like the government can give a push by making things easier to do. Like, you know, for instance, making it easier to import machinery without paying duties, lessening the amount of bureaucracy. So for instance, the main things that hold back the economy are basically, I feel, bureaucracy, not being able to get things done easily.
So you're saying the government has the right vision, right intent, the government machinery, which is primarily bureaucracy, should be able to execute well, whether it comes to an economic stimulus or whatever the government will do from here on. Arun Jagannathan?
For people to get things done.
Yes. Arun?
Yeah, so I feel that, as I mentioned earlier also, maybe larger companies, there is EGCLS and all those schemes which do help. But I think for an entrepreneur where, there is, let's say in a startup kind of environment where mostly it is going to be payroll or it's going to be rental, I don't see any kind of stimulus coming our way. So that's been my experience.
And what do you think the government can do more, Arun?
I think working with specific sectors, I'm pretty sure that there is a representation that is going to look at, let's say education, people looking at, like hospitality. So I think it has to be, sector specific because the needs and the pain points of each sector are very different. So I think some amount of, alteration in the approach is required.
Yeah, you're saying the cookie cutter approach doesn't,
Yes.
While the government did right, one of the things that we do, I would like all of you to be sensitive. Government did send food to the bottom of the pyramid, which kind of keeps our social fabric intact.
Absolutely.
You have to look at that very positively because there is, in spite of all this, the crime hasn't really gone up. There is no social tension hasn't gone up. Pranay, have you seen people around you, entrepreneurs around you, benefiting from the economic stimulus?
So personally and through my clients, we have not seen someone directly benefit from the economic stimulus. Mostly what we see is complaints that, well, it's still just a loan. I still have to pay it back. My interest keeps ticking. And banks may give me a loan more readily. But if my industry doesn't pick up, then I'm in a bigger hole than when I started in. And in February, if I owed 1 rupee, now I owe 2.5 rupees. But my income is still where it was.
What do you think the government can do more, Pranay?
At this stage, I think government, like you said, its first and primary need will have to be to retain that social fabric, and what it's trying to do there is it's working or whatever it is, it's doing something. But in the MSME sector, in the larger sectors, what we need is more access to the reforms. I think there is a certain amount of demystification that needs to be done, and people need to be able to understand, yes, this is something that's available to me, and there's no rigmarole role, and maybe it's a single window clearance, but the mystified sort of situation of the government where you feel no, they're not going to help me and it's going to be a bigger hassle and they're going to ask for too many documents and I'll have to prove 100 things, I'll have to engage a counsel and I'll have to engage a consultant, and there is that sort of pushback in the industry where the access to benefits may not be really reaching everyone.
Anurag, we've almost run out of time. I suppose we've covered everything, Anurag, or do you think this?
Yes, I mean, this is fine. I was going to ask Ashwin and he'll answer the same question.
Sure. Ashwin,
Ashwin,
we can go to Ashwin.
What can the government do well?
No, I think they're trying their best, right? I think there's a fair amount of effort which has been put into it. Example for us, we are a bootstrap founder and debt-funded company, so we are seeing better intent from financial institutions. That's a change in attitude. So
that's very heartening to hear,
right? So that's really positive, right? But on the other hand, I think the crux of the problem lies in what is called transaction, right? I mean, if there is a better discipline or the kind of some kind of urgency in digitization which happens between, let's say, when businesses engage with business, the consumers have been a lot better. I mean, we are talking about digital payments, everything, but business to business transactions, and if there is some level of discipline which comes between those transactions, right, and the governments can intervene there, that would not just kind of improve taxation, it will also improve the fact that there is better cash flows with all the SMEs.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.